Hi folks, I've just come back from delivering my second State of the City address here this morning. We videotaped it because I wanted to make sure every citizen in St. John and even Greater St. John had an opportunity to watch it. So here's what you're going to see. Take a few minutes and have a look. It's an important conversation for our city's future. We're going to talk about our growth initiatives and how we're looking to attract more people and working on attracting more people, jobs, and growing the tax base here in St. John. We're trying to get our finances in order, and we're going to talk about that in detail as well. And we're going to talk about some important asks of the provincial government for a brighter future for our city. Good morning. I'd like to focus on three main areas today. The halfway point, where are we on the journey to date? The destination, what will that look like? And the path ahead, and how will we get there from here? As a start, here's a snapshot of our current economic. Every year, RBC looks at 14 housing markets of various sizes across the country. St. John is consistently at the top. Here, 25% of our personal income goes to housing versus 48% in other markets in the country. That's a huge selling point for prospective newcomers, where they are immigrants from other countries, whether they are, or from other provinces. Both are looking for an affordable, safe place that offers opportunities to grow their careers and a bright future for their families. The size of the labor force in St. John's CMA increased slightly in 2017 from 69,100 to 69,700. Total employment increased from 63,600 to 65,500, a 3% increase. Talent attraction has quickly become a top priority for the region and should receive our full attention and resources. The number of people unemployed in the CMA dropped to 4,200 people in 2017, down 32% since 2013. Very positive. We've also had good news on the business front. The number of businesses with workers in the City of St. John was 2,596 in 2017. The number of IT firms increased from 39 to 41 in 17. And overall, the number of professional services firms increased by 8 to 242 in 2017. The number of manufacturing firms stayed steady at 66. The number of accommodation and food services firms increased by 7 to a total of 195. While economists are expecting our provincial GDP growth to slow to 0.6% in 2018 after averaging almost 2% over the past 3 years, it is still expected to be sufficient growth to keep the provincial unemployment rate stable. We need to continue to focus on jobs growth and growing our economy so that our citizens can work, live, and raise their families in our city. Consistency is critically important when it comes to leadership. I'm very proud to be talking about and that we've actioned all of the major themes identified in my campaign for mayor. Growth defined at the time as more people, jobs, and growing the tax base, fiscal responsibility, and we must get our fiscal house in order in the key provincial policy changes. Those are all elements that were discussed, and we have now fully integrated, council and city staff have now fully integrated this in the work plans and the day-to-day work at City Hall. Our roadmap for smart growth has delivered focused actions. In 2017, we launched the roadmap for smart growth, which will maximize the city's ability to achieve population, employment, and tax-based growth through strategic and immediate actions. So in fact, in March 2017, we identified 52 substantial action items. And today, I'm proud to tell you that 38 of those action items in the roadmap have been completed, 8 are active, and 3 have been discontinued. These were dramatic structural changes to our growth-related efforts, which resulted in the entire St. John economic development landscape working together towards predefined goals. Here are some of the key results. A new strategic real estate organization called Develop St. John. I'll talk about that more in a minute. A report and recommendation to the New Brunswick government and opposition of a new delivery model for fair taxation. If implemented in full, all taxpayers would pay less taxes and the city would be on a renewed path to prosperity. Creation of a population growth strategy, a first for the city. For the first time in 60 years, the Uptown has led the Greater St. John region in population growth with a rate of more than 15% over the last census period. $245,000 investment in development incentives has resulted in $2.5 million in construction activity and 37 new units being constructed. Annual construction value in the city was $207 million in 2017, a record-breaking year for the city. Non-residential construction was valued at $47.3 million compared to $25 million in 2016. 133 new housing units are under construction, the highest level since 2014. The Enhanced Vacant and Dangerous Building Program closed 80 cases, including 41 demolitions and 39 repairs. We're cleaning our city up. We are in the final stages of a public engagement on our Central Peninsula Neighborhood Plan. I always say, I'm sorry, Jacqueline, I always say Central Peninsula Action Plan, which is a long-term plan for this area with short, medium, and long-term actions. And we're going through the public engagement, final public engagement process now. Over the last 3 years, our community has welcomed approximately $500 million in federal and provincial infrastructure funding to support strategic projects, including the Safe Clean Drinking Water Project, the Westside Port expansion, the new Seaside Park Elementary School, the barge terminal, the NBCC facility expansion, the field house, the city market upgrades, transit funding, our St. John Airport, St. John High School upgrades recently announced, and more. Enterprise St. John is focused on employment growth with 568 new and sustained jobs. St. John's CMA employment was up by 1,900 people in 2017 versus 2016. So, as you heard last year, and nothing has changed, we must grow. Our growth efforts are new, bold, and have a real focus on alignment amongst our agencies, which is key, which achieves efficiency and focus on outcomes. We've done some heavy lifting for continued prosperity of our city. We have a growth focus, a wonderful education ecosystem, a diverse economy with global leaders, and world-class small and medium-sized enterprises. A wonderful people, generosity, and a drive to grow this city. We have a plan for growing our population, which is critically important. The population growth framework includes a focus on attracting new people to St. John, enhancing the newcomer experience, I hope this is part of that today, and the retention of our young people. This document is a wonderful collaboration amongst local agencies such as the YMCA Newcomers, St. John Newcomers, formerly Multicultural Newcomers Resource Center, Prude Inc., Human Development Council, and many more. Recruitment missions to attract new people in St. John are part of our plan, and keeping our young people to fill the jobs that we need is also critically important. It's also critically important that we do a better job of aligning and matching those looking for jobs and those that are on a daily basis talking about needing the skills. Attracting new residents to St. John, we've set very aggressive targets. The city of St. John has been on a decline of population since the 60s. We were, in the range, I think, of, to help me, 90,000 people, I think, at the height. We were going to grow to 250,000 people, and in 2016, we learned that we were at 67,540. And when we've just implemented for the first time a population growth strategy to turn this around. We've put a population growth manager in place. But this is probably one of the areas, frankly, that we need to invest in the most, and it's one of my concerns. It's one of the areas we invest in the least, the economic development side of our business. So we've set some very aggressive targets. David Dobbelstein, who's our population growth manager, who puts his seatbelt on no pressure, David. Is there a spotlight? We can shine it down on David. But it's not, all kidding aside, folks, it's not a single person's job. It's a whole community's job. It's a whole region's job. But we've set some incredibly aggressive targets for permanent residents here over the next number of years. And the only way we're going to get there, to David, to our city staff, to council, to the rest of the community, is to be incredibly aligned, incredibly focused, be excellent at execution, but also muster up more dollars to help us get there. We also participated in Infrastructure Canada's Smart City Challenge. So while we did not advance, and I'd like to congratulate our colleagues in Fredericton who did advance to the next round, we learned a lot. I'd like to thank Ernst & Young, Enterprise St. John, all of the city teams who worked, and all of the volunteers who worked day and night to put that application together. But we were left with the consolation prize, some very, very innovative approaches to moving forward. So when it comes to other elements of economic development, 2017 brought new changes for Enterprise St. John, with new CEO Ron Gaudette joining us, a former New Brunswicker with extensive experience in economic development in our province and in Ontario. Ron is happy to be back home, and we're sure happy to have him. and he's leading the growth initiatives here for us with Enterprise St. John. Enterprise St. John has also added a Director of Investment Attraction and a Workforce Attraction and Retention Officer, very fitting with the conversation we were just having. So I'd like to thank Ron, Ian, and Julia, the newest members of the team. We'd also like to acknowledge the work of Board Chair Andrew Oland, former Chair Martin Chasson, and the rest of the Board of Directors for the excellent work they're doing. They're leading the organization through a new strategic planning exercise, and we look forward to their new vision to accelerate results in our region. Since the time Ron has joined and Andrew has taken over the board chair, they've been meeting with major employers across the region to understand their current challenges and opportunities and holding focus groups with key businesses and community stakeholders. No CMA in Atlantic Canada has a greater percentage of its GDP from the private sector than St. John. So the private sector in St. John is incredibly important to us. It's home to 3 of the largest companies in Atlantic Canada, J.D. Irving, Irving Oil, and Cook Aquaculture. And you know, we often talk about how quiet we are in this region, but we have global, Joel and I were talking about this last night, we have global, and I've probably forgotten others, we have global leaders sitting right here in our backyard. And I think we've got to get much louder about it. So the ESJ team is aligned with the city's growth plans and focused on developing a 3-year economic development plan. I know Ron is passionate and has been talking to all of us about a longer runway, or use a longer highway. We've got to get out of year-to-year plans. We've got to have a much longer horizon. And I support you fully on that, Ron. So we're having those important conversations, and we'll continue to have that. So at my last State of the City, we talked about, we indicated that we would work with our economic development partners to recruit businesses and talent to our city and provinces with a trip to Toronto. I'm glad to report that in cooperation with a number of partners, including the cities of Moncton and Fredericton, Opportunities New Brunswick, J.D. Irving, Cook Aquaculture, Horizon Health, Enterprise St. John, and a number of other local organizations, we did go to Toronto in April. And the 3 mayors spoke at the Economic Club of Canada. It was a very well-received address. And then the next day, we attended an international career and resettlement job fair. We saw over 2,000 people in one room over a period of a few hours. Our team did an excellent job. I am thrilled. Mr. Irving stood on this stage a number of weeks ago and said some congratulations to the team, and talked about that there was some early signs that there were some folks coming in. I am incredibly pleased to share with you that Mary Keith shared with me last night that as a result, in April, folks, just in April, as a result of that trade mission, obviously the hard work of the teams, the HR teams, and all the folks that have done the great work, that JDI alone will be bringing 40 new people to St. John, and they'll be calling St. John home. So. And we're definitely checking in with all of the other employers that were there, but I think it's a great sign, Mary, and to JDI and the rest of us, that just by going there and shaking the bushes, look what we can get done. And Mayor Mike and Mayor Arnold, I'm sure have similar stories already in Fredericton and Moncton as well. So it's about telling New Brunswick's story. If we get in a room full of engaged and influential people to hear our province's story, there will be an impact. In fact, I believe our circumstances require much more aggressive actions. So I ask, why not a Tri-Cities recruitment center in downtown Toronto? Why not? Selling a career and a quality of life that people could only dream of here in St. John, Fredericton, and Moncton. Why not? I believe, in fact, the most people in Toronto don't even know we exist. You're too busy to know. So we need to continue to recruit amazing companies to our city and to our region, like RevJet, a Ukrainian software development company that set up office in St. John in 2015, upstairs, in fact, in City Hall, and as of October 17 had 24 employees and growing, with a payroll of $2 million. In fact, over the last 12 months, we've had wonderful news on the job front. Pronto Canada Cardinal Path, Air Canada, TD Insurance, S&P Data, Cook Aquaculture. JD Irving has announced their long-term plans. Thousands and thousands. And if you read the paper today, or I think yesterday, Shiloh is, at the Y is looking for 350 more people over. We need people, folks. We need people. We need to get much more aggressive. And we've got the best value proposition in the country. We're the friendliest people. We've got affordable real estate. We've got an amazing quality of life, but it's not going to come here on its own. So we need to continue to build on the great work that we're doing. I just think we need to dial it up. So to support Council's priority of being fiscally responsible, the city continues to make progress on the development of a long-term financial plan. The plan will be a cornerstone in helping guide Council today and future councils to make strategic and affordable decisions to ensure sustainable service delivery. To achieve the targets set out in the plan, it's important for the city to have strong financial governance, supported by strong financial policies. St. John is well on its way, with Common Council having approved 4 best practices in terms of financial policies to date. Policies such as the reserve policy that sets principles for saving money for tomorrow, so that not all of our future projects require debt financing. Or, for example, the operating budget policy that sets principles to avoid future structural deficits, such as prohibiting the use of non-recurring revenue to fund recurring expenditures. The investment policy has provided a way for the city to receive the maximum return on our investments for the lowest risk possible. The asset management policy will ensure that the city makes evidence-based decisions on infrastructure investments while thinking about the future and considering climate change impacts. The capital budget policy, approved by the Finance Committee to be approved by Council on July the 9th, will ensure the city prioritizes capital investment based on long-term needs and robust asset management principles. These, ladies and gentlemen, these are legacy policies. We're Canada's first incorporated city. We're 233 years old. And these policies have never been in place before. So these are legacy policies. I'm very proud of Council for adopting these, and I'd like to acknowledge the tremendous leadership of our Finance Chair, Councillor David Merrithew, and our finance staff led by our Commissioner, Kevin Fudge. The city's also been very diligent in controlling costs. The city has, for the 10th consecutive year, held its tax rate. The tax rate's too high, but in spite of that, we've held it. With growth averaging less than 1% over the last 5 years, has also managed to reduce long-term debt in the general fund by $5 million and identified ways to increase contributions to operating and capital reserves, saving money to mitigate future unforeseen risks and saving money to invest in infrastructure, which reduces the city's reliance on debt. We're using our credit card less. We shouldn't be using our credit card at all. The city also managed to reduce the workforce by 82 permanent full-time positions. That's 9% of our workforce over the last 10 years, while maintaining service levels. Again, if you link that back to the comments I made earlier about the organization that I came from, we would have ferocious debate through our strategic planning and our work plans. What are we going to do? What 3 things are we going to do this year and be really good at it? And ferociously, what are we not going to do? And our CEO would make us say it. We're not going to chase business in Maine this year. We're not going to go do this. It's really difficult in a municipal environment because people want us to do everything and be everything to everybody. We cannot be. We cannot be. So we're going to need to make changes. And from a political leadership perspective, I'm looking to all of the elected leaders in the room. It's hard because people want us to be everything to everybody. Mayor Mike knows about a few things in the last number of weeks where he's had some big meetings, Mayor Mike, right? So I'm glad it's not just here in St. John that we have big meetings. So we need to continue to work on being even more focused. So even though we're making tremendous progress towards an even more sustainable future, we still need to recognize that there are tremendous challenges ahead. Our financial woes have not been solved. There are those that would say, if you can't change it, don't talk about it. I simply can't accept that belief, because that has resulted in many of our current realities, in my opinion. The city still has the highest tax rate in the province, the highest level of long-term debt, and has significant infrastructure deficits that require strong financial planning. The city has also put in place a robust continuous improvement program. This is relatively new. I'm sure the city has been innovating. I'm looking at the city manager and other staff, been innovating for decades. But a designated and specific continuous improvement, lean, Six Sigma, JDI, Irving Oil, Roxanne, all the best in class in the room. You've done this for years. But the city's put a vigorous program in place, and I'm very proud of the work that our teams are doing. Over 50 staff have now been trained. I think very strategically, the city manager and the senior teams are now turning these folks back into the organization so they can bring the lessons that they've learned, and they can start to spread that into our culture and make changes from within, from the bottom up, from the top down. That's what's most important. We've had 42 projects run so far, and so far we've identified over $2 million in annualized savings. So, it's a great start, and I commend our city staff for the hard work that they're doing. On the growth and community development side, there's tremendous work happening here as well, with a lot of emphasis continuing to be placed in the Central Peninsula. Probably one of the most important initiatives that we're doing there is the Central Neighborhood Plan, led by Kay Gillis and our volunteer team. And I'm very, very excited for this visionary 30-year plan. But what I'm excited about, Jacqueline, and to her team, is that it has a number of short, medium, and long-term strategies in place. So we also need to continue to drive density within the primary development areas in the city. So at the end of April, you may have remembered there was a little bit of an event in St. John. We received notice that the St. John River could reach historic flooding levels. I don't know who said it. There was a little event last night, and somebody said it's sort of like getting notice that you're going to get punched in the face, but it's going to take a couple of days to get there, and you don't know how much it's going to hurt. And it hurt. Our EMO began to mobilize so we can ensure the safety of our residents and the operations of our city. It's important for you to know that our EMO is made up of employees across the organization who are trained to respond during an activation. Some of these employees work in public safety, but many do not. So, for example, our purchasing department provides logistics support. This might involve procuring thousands of sandbags, and staff from community development provided the people support to residents. This event was prolonged. It was 2 weeks. And staff from every area of the city of St. John, including IT, GIS, finance, HR, communications facilities, transportation and environment, and others worked around the clock. They saved wastewater facilities, built roads, and made sure residents, volunteers, and staff were safe and unharmed. They innovated with online applications to track flood zone progress in real time, so residents could see safe and dangerous areas. This is the kind of innovative thinking and action we need, and it will serve us well in the future. If you didn't live in one of the affected areas, you might not have seen the huge response, but you can rest assured that while St. John EMO and the Red Cross worked to ensure the safety of over 1,000 residents, your services were not impacted. It was an absolutely amazing response. And to my colleagues in the Valley, to New Brunswickers, to all of the organizations, to the private sector, Cook, JDI, Irving Oil, Home Depot, I don't want to forget anybody. It was absolutely amazing response. New Brunswickers helping New Brunswickers, St. Johners helping St. Johners. But also, just as an observation, it paused everything we did and do as a city. It's sort of what happens. I'm awfully glad we have the bench strength. It's a great example of the bench strength we have in our cities, but it paused everything in our work plan for well over 2 weeks, and the city manager and his team are reminding us that, some of the projects that we had on our plate have been pushed back, and we estimate the costs at now well over $1 million. So speaking of water, in late 2018, all the residents in St. John will have access to safe, clean drinking water that meets regulatory requirements. This $216 million project, approved by the previous council, remains on schedule and on budget. It has not been without a few challenges, but like any large-scale mega project, it's going to be awesome when it's done. However, St. John Water customers will enjoy the highest quality and safety standards. The Westside Water was deemed the third best tasting water in Atlantic Canada at a recent conference of water professionals. Eastside Water customers will be transitioned before the end of the year with the 3 new storage tanks, a state-of-the-art water treatment facility, and many kilometers of new transmission lines. So I'd like to thank the entire team at the Safe Clean Drinking Water Project for doing an absolutely amazing job. It's the largest water infrastructure project in the province's history, so thank you to Brent and his team. So, moving forward, we're seeing signs of reinvestment in our city, which indicate early and tangible positive signs of economic growth for St. John, and we must continue to build on this. We're getting a lot of things right on this journey, and we're committed to actions that grow St. John. Yes, we're making real and definite strides. However, we still have a long road ahead of us. How fast we travel down that road depends, once again, on all of us. It requires cooperation and commitment, solid plans, focus, and world-class execution. I was talking with someone recently who said one of their competitors approached them one time and said, how you guys are doing everything right. How are you doing it? How are you doing it? And their response was, well, here's our plan. Do you want it? Here's all the strategies. Here's the map. Here's everything. Because it's not the words and the paper that matter. It's the execution that matters. It's the execution that matters. And I truly believe we're getting better and better and better at the execution and our focus. For me, our destination is a St. John that offers quality jobs, healthy, vibrant neighborhoods, solid and efficient infrastructure, and is fiscally responsible. A city where youth, newcomers, and seniors want to live, raise their families, and where businesses succeed and expand. A city committed to being fiscally responsible, well-run, sustainable, and continually improving. This must be the goal, and we must become even more focused on achieving results. How will we get there? Well, first we have to get our costs under control. Council's priorities and our city's senior leadership team are working on managing costs and applying new revenue streams with a goal to reduce our tax rate and getting our fiscal house in order. I believe it's critical to our future success to improve the city's competitiveness. The city and region's economic indicators and consumer confidence levels have been trending in a positive direction and indicating an increased level and optimism, in fact, at the highest level since 2012. When we have a strong and diversified tax base and solid financial policies, it allows us to withstand unexpected economic challenges much more easily. We're now focused on game changers to address our city's root causes and to make a real difference in the lives of our citizens. Easy to say and perhaps not a bad soundbite. Admittedly, not easy to do. Not easy to do. Let me be blunt. In some cases, the tail is wagging the dog in our city. And this needs to change. At times, it appears like folks want everything fixed and nothing to change. Everything fixed and nothing to change. That's hard. Very hard. And it's an impossible combination, in fact. So we must stay focused, innovate, and execute with precision. We need to have a city with economic and social opportunities for all. St. John has an increasingly diverse economy. The city remains home to robust industrial, energy, technology, and tourism sectors, anchored by UMBSJ, NBCC, and Eastern College, and growing information technology and a health sciences cluster. We must continue to chase, prioritize, and qualify projects that will help us sustain and grow our economy. I'm a big fan of the big home runs, but I'm a huge fan of constant and steady progression. Constant, we need the big ones, but we need to qualify the big ones too to make sure that there's a reality behind these deals. At the same time, we must confront our challenges. Our 5 priority neighborhoods, a high rate of child poverty, and help those who rely heavily on shelters and food banks to survive. We can do better. We must do better. Another front I'm working with with a working group made up of Dr. Duncan Webster, Dr. Sarah Gander, and other professionals from Public Health, Human Development Council, pharmacists, and UMB, is a harm reduction strategy. Now, some of you may not know what that is. A harm reduction strategy for the city. It would help those impacted by a battle with drug addictions. This is not only a big city crisis. We had a working group meeting last week, and they were sharing stories with me, and I burst into tears. And I suspect many of you would as well. Sarah shared a story with me that we have folks in our community addicted to drugs that are addicting their children to drugs so that they won't have a better chance of a better life than themselves. Can you imagine the desperation? I don't say that to judge. And I understand very clearly the difference between municipal and provincial and federal jurisdictions. But I'm pleading with our provincial leaders, our federal leader, or our federal member in Wayne, with Sarah, with Duncan, to do something about it. I cannot sit back and not have us do something about it. There are those in our city who have lost hope. We have to bring them along and restore their hope and their aspirations. A future of hope. We need to give everyone a future of hope. One of the greatest strengths of our community is our compassion and our generosity. It is what I'm most proud of when I talk about our community. This is evident by the work of our social agencies, faith communities, and service clubs that reach out to those in need, especially residents that live below the poverty line. We're working with Living SJ, the United Way of Greater St. John, the province, and the federal government to fight generational poverty. Our MP, Wayne Long, has been working on a number of key initiatives in these areas, and we look forward to a number of program enhancements over the next years. Thank you, Wayne. With the contributions of $10 million over the next 5 years from the provincial government and Living SJ, along with more than 100 partners represented by local government, business, nonprofit, and neighborhood groups, we must improve upon and resolve our city's poverty issues. I'm very excited by the early innovation projects announced. For example, the Parent-Child Assistance Program led by Dr. Sarah Gander, a first in Atlantic Canada, the Southern Peninsula School Task Force, and the pilot project on differential funding, providing more resources to schools within priority neighborhoods. These are early programs, they're innovative, and they're aimed at ending generational poverty. I see Donna over to my left. Thank you, Donna, to Living SJ and to everyone else supporting that work. Just this past week, I had the opportunity to attend the graduation ceremony at an impressive organization that aims to mentor and help young moms and their children have a bright future. First Steps is a residential facility operating in partnership with the community. It offers support and a supportive environment to young, pregnant, and parenting women who have no safe place to live, assisting them in reaching their full potential. I've invited a couple of graduates who I introduced to you earlier today as my guests. I've been twice now. I was last year's graduation. Just last week, I was at this year's graduation. It's an incredible organization. To its board, to its leadership, thank you for all the work you do. And I think it resonates most for me because not necessarily, you were a young mom, I think, when my mom and dad split up. I'll say that, right, Mom? Young mom. But I was raised by a very, very strong single mom. And that's, I think, what resonates most. And in my remarks last week, I think I shared with you, I said something to the effect that don't let anyone tell you you can't do anything you want to do or achieve anything you want to achieve, especially not yourselves, right? Especially not yourselves. So it's this sense of community that makes St. John welcoming and comfortable, a place we call home. We must continue maintaining and fortifying this progress, building on the spirit and the sense of community pride. So, in continuing to welcome newcomers from all over the country and the world to our city, Cultural diversity has always helped our community grow, strengthen, and shape the fabric of our community. We want our newcomers to find value in our city's affordable, balanced, sustainable, and relaxed lifestyle. And we talk about this with newcomers all the time. They want nothing more than any of us want for ourselves or for our own kids. A job, a safe place to live, a doctor, to be welcomed in the community. And I think we're doing very, very well. And I think we can do just a little bit better. So, I swear to you, I'm wrapping up. All kidding aside, there's so much to say. It's such a big task at hand, and I just feel like it's such a wonderful opportunity. So I do thank you for your patience, and I really will end with asking for your help. We can't do this alone. We need your help. So again, I thank you for giving of your time this morning. St. John is experiencing an uptown revival. It is very attractive to empty nesters and young professionals. It's not so easy to find a good apartment uptown because they're in such high demand, and Develop SJ is working on this. Currently, 85% of all jobs are located in our city, and 40% of those jobs are filled by those who live in the region. Our population growth strategies are addressing opportunities and initiatives to have a higher yield ratio for live-work. Last year, the province opened a new school on the west side. Housing sales in that community alone were up 30%, so we have a strong linkage to community schools. That's why the task group working on a new school for the Central Peninsula in the South End is so critically important. So critically important for the South End, the vibrancy of the South End, for the community, but also for our future growth plans. Back in December, I posted a tweet linking an article on big cities' long commute times. I invited people across the country to move to St. John for lower commute times and its affordability. The post went on the front page of Reddit and went viral and received over 73,000 hits. I received calls from numerous media organizations across the country. Even the Toronto Star featured us on the front page. I guess I linked that back and I looked to Stephen, he's got the money, and others around this idea of Toronto and our recruitment center. So I think we've got all the makings here to make that happen. In 2017, St. John set new records. I am going to scoop some pages, but I do want to reference it because Victoria and her team had a stellar year. Set new records for both tourism expenditures and the number of visitors to our city. Tourism expenditures increased 6% to reach a new high of $266 million. And last year, the city welcomed a record high, almost 1.7 million visitors. Thank you very much, Victoria. Okay. While we continue to work through our fiscal strategic implementation and transitional support from the province, we have the ability to shape a sustainable future for the St. John region and more prosperous outlook for New Brunswick. However, our future lies in finding efficiencies in running a combined regional municipality that will also serve as an East Coast magnet for attracting growth, offering both quality urban and suburban lifestyles, where all residents contribute fairly and equitably to the region's quality of life. Core services, essential infrastructure, and long-term sustainability. Together, we can shape a brighter future for our city and region. We need legislative reforms that will allow for lower taxes, which in turn will make not just St. John, but also New Brunswick more competitive for new investment and facilitate local infrastructure, public safety, and quality of life investments. Since politics can be complicated, it takes significant efforts to align priorities, policies, and support amongst municipal, provincial, and federal governments to have these conversations and deliver results. Our city's investments in our infrastructure support the region. We have a city with landmass that fits Rothesay, Moncton, and Fredericton combined inside our boundaries. Our population doubles during the workday, all using services while they're here. We need to negotiate mutual benefits with neighboring municipalities so we can deliver services where the entire region prospers. There can be no delay. We must work together more effectively to create meaningful regional economic development, regional capital plans, and position our communities for future success. Think about the benefits of being the largest regional municipality in New Brunswick, 125,000 people strong, and the position of strength for the future. What will we do differently? How will we think differently? Are we ready to look ahead and make sure our region is ready to compete nationally and globally? Will we put the prosperity of the whole region at the top of the list? I'm hopeful that you'll join me in this discussion that's bigger than any one of us here today, and it's critical to our collective prosperity in the future. With the upcoming provincial election drawing closer, I'm calling on all our political parties to deliver to Greater St. John the reforms necessary to leverage our infrastructure and resources to become an even greater center for commerce, trade, and investment. The City of St. John has joined forces with the 8 cities of New Brunswick to focus on 3 critical areas of reform necessary for more sustainable futures for our cities and citizens. This will include engagement with all parties, candidates, and a request for specific commitments. With a discipline, focus, and support by many, for the greater good of all, here's what I think 2028 could look like 10 years from now. We could have right-sized our city operations. Our special pension payments will have ceased, $10 million a year. We could have fair and balanced collective agreements, which is a key barrier to our sustainability. We could have competitive tax rates with other cities in New Brunswick. We could have significantly less dependence on Government of New Brunswick funding sources and unconditional grants. We could have a growing tax base and new sustainable revenue sources. We could have right-sized our parks, pools, arenas, and other assets. We could have a vibrant primary development area, sustainable population and employment growth, and high citizen satisfaction levels, and have St. John being recognized as a very, very, and even more desirable place to live. And most importantly, have achieved meaningful regionalization of services and have achieved a competitive future for Greater St. John. So that's where we could be 10 years from now. And I'd suggest it's up to us. Just 2 years ago, we embarked on a journey together, and I firmly believe that we are headed in the right direction. Council and staff are working collectively and diligently on turning the curve and focused on delivering successful outcomes to get us to our destination. We'll continue to have a bigger conversation within the Greater St. John area as to how we can leverage our infrastructure and resources to be the province's region for commerce, trade, and investment, where we all benefit. I'm convinced by sticking with one plan, one message, and one voice, we can get there. I'll work collaboratively with all levels of government and all parties on the opportunities and challenges that our city faces. The good news is we have the action plans. At the center of this plan is you. Our residents, young, middle-aged, and seniors, you must come first. You, the residents who choose to make St. John home. Our plans focus on generating new revenue, restricting costs, and seeking and achieving policy change with the provincial government. We're focusing on population, tax base, and economic growth. What our plans don't do is kick the ball further down the field by avoiding difficult decisions. It's not the perception of actions that matter, it's measurable results that matter. We all need to create impressive wins together because it is our constituents who benefit. Issues like tax fairness, provincial grants, and municipal legislation need to be discussed. Commitments need to be made and real solutions found. St. John and our citizens depend on it. Our city is full of potential and our citizens are passionate. We need to stop whispering about pride in our city, and we need to stop saying if St. John could just. We just need to make sure St. John is doing it. We need to accelerate our work together and realize the full potential of our St. Awesome city. So I'm asking for your help. Citizens, the business community, our employees, my council colleagues, and all levels of government to help us achieve new and lasting results. You are on this journey with us. We are all in this together. So ask yourself, what am I doing to help move our city forward? How can I engage? How am I prepared to get loud and support the changes I want to see? What are the moves we should make now to better prepare us for the challenges we face in the future? I'm proud, very proud, of the work we've accomplished over the last 25 months. I'm incredibly appreciative of our staff. We set policy, we drive them crazy, we attend lots of meetings, they do the work. I'll leave you with this in closing. I'm motivated by a deep desire to have a lasting impact on my community and on citizens, on its citizens. Shaped by my early life experiences, perhaps. Often excited by tackling topics, issues, and what some would describe as unsolvable problems. I want no part of a status quo that results in the continued hardship and the stifling of growth in our city and its citizens. The measure of a person is not where they stand in moments of comfort and convenience, but where they stand at times of challenge and controversy. Martin Luther King. Thank you very much.